Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. We are having another virtual event sponsored by the Rutgers iCoreSite program in conjunction with the GS LSAMP program and the New Jersey B2B. We have Dr. Roselin Rosario-Melendez joining us to talk about her story and how she's succeeding in STEM and leading innovation against the odds. Chris, maybe you want to just say a little bit something about the GS LSAMP? Just for a moment?
Okay, sure. I'm the assistant director of the Garden State LSAMP, and together with the Northern New Jersey Bridges to the Baccalaureate program, we represent together the 12 different colleges and universities in New Jersey. And the mission of these programs is to increase diversity and success and participation in STEM fields. So our students come from, as I said, 12 different universities and colleges across New Jersey. And we're here to hear what Dr. Rosario-Melendez has to say about succeeding in STEM, because we are STEM organizations.
Great. And Tom is here, but he's having audio issues. Can you just say a word about his New Jersey B2B?
So the LSAMP and the B2B work in conjunction. The LSAMP is mainly universities. We do have one community college, and the B2B, which stands for Bridges to the Baccalaureate, is a program at 4 different New Jersey community colleges that is designed to help students succeed in STEM and continue their academic careers into university settings.
That's me. Everything has settled, so.
Oh, good, great. Okay, and so I'm Mark Guzman. I'm the program manager of the Rutgers iCoreSite program, and Lori is gonna go ahead. Lori, you can introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. I'm Lori Dars, and I'm the director of the Rutgers iCoreSite program, and I have 2 other colleagues with us today. You can see with the matching backgrounds, Dunbar Burney, our site PI, and Dan Benderly from our Office of Research. So we're one of the iCore leadership team. So today we're going to talk very briefly about iCore because we want to allow the majority of time for Roselin, our featured speaker, who I know you're all going to really love hearing about. Roselin will probably take some questions throughout her talk. Mark and I will be monitoring the chat. So you can, feel free to put a question in the chat, and, if it fits in the section, we'll call on you. If not, we'll address it at the end, and then we'll do a wrap up. Just want to let you know, at least a couple of the members of our iCore team will stay after 5 o'clock. We're due to end at 5. So if you have a question about our program, because we're going to cover it very quickly, we'll be here. I know some of you will have to leave at 5, but if you're available, we'll be here at the end. So I just wanted to let you know that. Next slide, Mark. So the iCore program is really all about driving innovation through customer discovery. We are also funded by the National Science Foundation, and our program is a cohort program. We run about 6 weeks, and it's really about learning, is the innovation you're working on, does it solve a problem for customers? And we teach you how to do interviews and customer discovery before you completely develop your product or service, not after. It really saves time. It de-risks your innovation. We provide training. Often mentors. Our iCore leadership and teaching team works with all the teams that participate in the cohort. We have specialized software. It's focused on the business model canvas, which is shown there. It's a shortened version of a business plan. It really helps you cut to the core of what your value is you're offering to your potential customers. And then we connect you with the broader ecosystem to really learn about other opportunities, funding opportunities, and also other resources. And we're part of a national network, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a future slide. Here it is. So this is the National Innovation Network. iCore started in about 2012 on a grander, bigger level, really just focusing on university innovations. In about 2017, Rutgers was given an iCore site grant to expand the program. down to, we have student teams now. They're not just all faculty teams. And we are one of 99 sites across the country. There's only one other one in New Jersey. That's at NJIT. But you see on the map here, this huge innovation network. Next slide.
Oh, okay. Oh, I have this wrong slide. Yeah, so basically the I-Corps program was, it came out of the National Science Foundation from a Stanford class from Steve Blank, and they wanted to expand the opportunity for diversity and inclusion because they found that women and minorities were underrepresented in these fields. And so they launched this Innovation Inclusion Summit in 2018, and then they expanded it for women in 2019. They really want to focus on this problem. It's really a national problem. And so really we're focusing on diversity and inclusion here in our I-Corps site program. And the idea is that any team that has some sort of innovation coming from a university lab is eligible to apply for I-Corps and this program. And so through our fellowship, we are expanding this opportunity for individuals from underrepresented groups to participate with our I-Corps teams to meaningfully contribute to their customer discovery activities and to have an educational experience. And there is a stipend associated with it as well. And there are two types. When you could, the first where you could be attached to a team where there's already a team that has an innovation, but you're just interested in innovation entrepreneurship, and you probably have some leadership experience. And so we will match you with that team based on your interests and their needs. So that's the first type of fellowship. The second type is a cohort and ecosystem fellow, where you actually work more closely with the teaching team to help them, to help support them and learn how the teaching team addresses these issues and helps make things happen for them. And basically, there's a fellowship application involved. I don't want to get too much into it, but basically, there's the website where you can find out a little bit more about the fellowship program, but you can also find out details, but apply following this Qualtrics survey, submitting anything about your leadership experience, your interest in innovation and entrepreneurship, and your resume and LinkedIn profile. And anyone who kind of meets what we're looking for, then we'll approach you and have an interview with you, and then we'll match you with a team based on the interests and what the team needs. And so applications are open now. Deadline is January 25th for teams who with their own innovation or individuals who could be potential fellows to apply. So again, I think Lori, if you could.
I put the website and the email in the slide.
Yeah.
I'm in the chat. Sorry, it's there. So and we're available after for any questions. We went through this pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of information on our website. Information on the I-Corps in general and on the fellowship. So check out our website, email us, and we're happy to stay on and talk to you after.
Okay. And thank you for the time. And without further ado, I'll stop sharing my screen. We're going to introduce Dr. Roselin Rosario-Melendez, and she'll do her introduction. Thank you so much for joining us, Roselin.
Thank you. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Let me know once you can see it. So I hope you can see my first slide. So thanks a lot to the I-Corps at Rutgers team, Lori and Mark, for inviting me today. I'm very, very happy and excited to be back at Rutgers, although it's virtually this time. For the opportunity to allow me to share my story with everyone that is interested. And first, I want to also thank Mark for suggesting the title for the presentation, because it really it's perfect for the message that I want to give about my experience and so succeeding in STEM, leading innovation against the odds. And I want to talk about just my experience from all the way from when I growing up until today, and what I do in terms of innovation.
Roselin, should I launch this poll real quick?
Oh, yes, of course.
So I'm going to launch a poll. It'll just take a few moments. There's two questions. I'll launch this first one first. We'll just take about 30 seconds just to find out about the underrepresented groups who are part of the call today.
And it's
so-
anonymous, so we're going to share the results just so you'll see, but it's anonymous.
Mhm.
Great. So we've got about half of the people have filled it in so far. Just take another 10 seconds or so. Okay. 30 seconds. I'll stop and I'll share the results. So so the question is, do you fall under one of NSF's categories of underrepresented groups, which include women, persons with disabilities, or Blacks or African Americans, Hispanics, and Latinos, or American Indians and Alaska Natives? And 87% on this call today do fit that, which is great. So this is really for you. I'm gonna do one more poll, the second one, just so we have an understanding of which of the following best describes your role in higher education, whether you're, what type of student are you, or if you're faculty, staff, or professional. Okay, a lot of people are applying really quickly. They really want to see Roselin. So yeah, this is great. Okay, just 5 seconds
It's
more.
a great mix.
Yeah, it is a good mix.
Really good mix.
All right, cool. So, whoops, share the results. So we do have a decent mix. So Roselin, you impact everybody, I think.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
that's great.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you all for doing the polls. We appreciate it.
okay, thank you.
All right. So, I asked, Mark and Lori to monitor the chat throughout the presentation. It doesn't have to be, one way, which I just present and you ask me at the end. Feel free to jump in when you have any questions, if there's something that you want to clarify. Even if there's, a comment, I would love to also discuss and see if there's any commonalities, between, anyone in the audience. So I'm going to start first with the definition of odds, because at least I am English as I have English as my second language, so my native language is Spanish. So it's always good for me to kind of revisit certain definitions to make sure that we're all in the same page. And so the odds are the chances or the likelihood of something happening being the case. And like anything in life, there are certain things that have very high odds and some others that, very little, chance of happening. But the way I see, everything in life is that it doesn't matter how high the odds are, everything is possible. And there's always a way to make things happen. So first I want to kind of introduce my background. So I am Latina. I think that's very obvious from my name. Anyone that reads my name know that fact. I am from a small town in a lower middle class family. I was educated in a public school system, and I didn't really have exposure or education in STEM early on, or actually throughout all of my school years, and really no exposure to innovation, inventions, patents. All of that was really not in my radar when I was growing up. And I am an introvert. So although I give presentations and talks and all of that, I still get nervous and my hands sweat and all of that. So on this slide, I have a picture of me back in 1993 when I was in second grade, and I was presenting in school, talking about what I wanted to be when I grew up. So of course, back then I used to get even more nervous giving presentations, and I did not say that I wanted to be a chemist and I wanted to be an inventor and all of the stuff that I do now. I asked my mom, and she remembers that back then I wanted to be a teacher because that's really what I saw every day. I went to school and I saw teachers, so that's what I knew I could potentially do in my career. So then, what are the odds of that little girl with that specific background becoming a PhD chemist, a patented inventor, an innovator, a leader, and also a woman in STEM advocate, which is what I'm doing today? To me, the odds were very, very small. However, like I said before, everything is possible. And during my presentation, I want to tell you a little bit how I got to where I am today and the steps that I took to get there. So just touching a little bit more on the odds, because I'm a scientist and I like data. I'm just not going to say the odds are very low and you take my word for it. I looked at some data published by different organizations. One is the American Chemical Society, which I've been a member for many, many years. And they publish information on who has earned PhDs, especially, and this one is actually very good because it's from 2012, which is the year I defended my dissertation. So that year, 37% of PhDs in chemistry were earned by women. So as a woman, I only had that 37% chance. And then from all of the degrees, only 5% were earned by Hispanics or Latinos. So you can see that the chances are, the odds are very small, but not impossible. Then looking into patents and inventorship, the United States Patent and Trademark Office have done a lot of recent studies to understand the role of women and also minorities in the granted and also filing patents and participation in patenting. And especially, so the conclusion of these studies is that one, there's very limited data throughout the years, and women and minorities are underrepresented in all the granted US patents. The graph that I have on this slide, I'm showing on the blue line is the number of patents that have at least one woman inventor. So by 2019 is around 20, 22, 23%. And the purple line is the number of patents with only women inventors, and that's still at around 12%. So, being a woman inventor with granted patents is still, very low. It's trending in the right direction because it's increasing every year, and the gender gap in participation in patenting is getting better, but we're not there yet. So, I am very proud and happy to be one of these women that contribute to both of the lines in that graph. So how did I beat the odds? I unfortunately don't have some secret answer or a secret that I can pack up and sell or just give to people and we can all become PhDs and inventors. But what I can say is based on my experience, how I got to where I am today. And one is seizing opportunities. I have been fortunate that I had opportunities come to me. And when they did, and they were the right opportunities, I grabbed them. And I'm also been knocking on doors, trying to find opportunities. So I'm not just sitting, idling, waiting for things to happen. I'm just going and, making things happen for myself. Working hard, at least for me, that's something that I take very seriously. I feel like if you put the effort, then you can get those returns. And also not giving up. That's a big thing for me because when things are hard, many times it's easier to just give up and say, okay, I'm not going to spend the time and energy in those activities. So I always feel like if I am, in an uncomfortable situation, I know that I am going in the right direction. So I keep going and not give up. So to give you a little bit more, background about, where I come from, I was born and raised in a small town in Puerto Rico called Ay Bonito. So Puerto Rico is a small island in the Caribbean. Ay Bonito is a small town in the center of the island. It's actually in the mountains, so I didn't grow up by the beach, surfing and swimming, none of that. I was just in the mountains. It's a beautiful place, quiet, small town to grow up in. I am one of 4 siblings. And like I mentioned before, my family growing up, we were lower middle class. That's the house where I grew up in. And we really had the basics, we were happy, but just the basics, nothing fancy, nothing extra. And I studied in the public school system in Puerto Rico back in the 90s. It wasn't the best school system, but I was fortunate to be in a very good school where all the teachers really cared about the students. And also my mom was really there with me and my siblings, making sure that, you know, we were excelling in school. Like I mentioned before, I didn't have exposure to STEM. That wasn't something that, you know, was in our radar in school, but I was part of a science club, and that's one picture of me with the yellow shirt. And in that science club, I learned a lot about the environment and the importance of, you know, protecting the environment. And to this day, I still, I was thinking a lot of behaviors that I have come from that experience that I had. Then throughout all of my school years, I was a good student, especially math and science. I was just naturally good at them. So in high school, the advice that I got was, you know, if you're good in math and science, you can be a medical doctor. And I say, okay, well, but I don't like blood and I can't see blood. And, you know, if you're going to be a medical doctor, most likely you have to deal with blood at some point. And I said, okay, well, you know, I go to the dentist. That's kind of, you know, along the same lines, and I don't see that much blood there. So, you know, I'll be a dentist. And I had to choose a major. And so I said, you know, I really like chemistry in high school. So I said, I will study chemistry. And then in terms of choosing a school, I had to choose a school that I could, you know, commute to. That was the only like option that I had back then, and also a school that I could afford. So the University of Puerto Rico was, you know, the best option, as a public school was really a very, you know, good option. So, and I chose a campus that was really close to my house, so I could commute every day. So in college, I, you know, was taking my classes, laboratories, but then I joined a research program that was bringing universities from the mainland US to recruit students to take them to do, you know, research over the summer. And so I joined the program and I started doing, you know, the interview process. So every week, you know, there will be a different school recruiting. And I remember doing a lot of different interviews. And, you know, the day after the interview, we can go back to the program and there will be, you know, a piece of paper with the pictures of the students that were chosen. And, you know, many times my picture was not up there. So I came back. So I didn't give up. Of course, you know, rejection hurts. But what I did is, okay, is that one. So for me, I'll come back to the next one. And I finally found an opportunity. And the summer between my sophomore year and junior year, I jumped in a plane for the very first time and traveled outside of Puerto Rico, and I went to Texas A&M and did research. First time I was in the lab, I learned, you know, so much. I really enjoyed being in the lab. I learned different, you know, scientific skills, and also met people from so many different countries. And that allowed me to have such a broader perspective about, you know, just life in general. Then I went back to my school. I did more research. I was working in a lab that was being set up at the time and modifying surfaces for different applications. And then I had a very big opportunity. That same research program, the director called me and said, Merck, the pharmaceutical company, wants to recruit one student from our school, and I'm recommending you. I was like, oh, okay, well, and I asked, who else is going? And he said, nobody else, just you. So I was scared because, you know, I've never been anywhere by myself. I've been commuting to college the entire time. But he took the time to explain to me why that was a huge and important opportunity. So he convinced me. And then I had the task to convince my parents because they didn't want me to go anywhere by myself. So finally, everyone was convinced, and I was able to come to New Jersey, to Rahway, to do my internship at Merck. And this was one of the best opportunities that I've had in my personal and professional life. I learned, you know, how is it to do research in industry and compare that to academia. And I also gained one of the best mentors that I have had throughout my career. So Dr. Mitno, who's here in the picture in the center, I work in his lab, and he guided me through, understanding what is it to go to grad school, because I didn't know that. Like, nobody in my family has ever been to grad school. Nobody's a scientist. So he helped me to learn and to do the applications, and is a person that is been mentoring me throughout the years. I was just on the phone over the weekend talking to him, just about, my professional life today. I actually did this internship twice, so I actually liked it. They liked me back, so I actually went back right after I graduated. It was an amazing experience. And finally, I, finished my bachelor's degree and went right into graduate school. And that was right for me. Not, I don't think that it's necessary there's the right pathway for every single individual, but for me, I really wanted to go straight from college to graduate school. And then graduate school, of course, I attended Rutgers, which I'm very proud of. And in graduate school, I did research like everybody. Like, I was in Professor Catherine Urich's lab in the Department of Chemistry and Chemical Biology. And my research was focused on designing new drug delivery systems. So I will synthesize these polymer materials that will have analgesic pain medications in the backbone, then do full characterization, so NMR, IR, all types of chemical characterizations, you name it, we were doing them. And then taking those materials, doing formulation. So I specialized on formulating microspheres, which are this picture that I have on the slide, because I wanted my materials to be injected into the body, so you didn't have to have a surgery to implant it, and then have that drug being released over time. You don't have to take it every day. I did in vitro and in vivo studies, and I was super fortunate to have a lot of funding to be able to do, especially the in vivo evaluation, and also collaboration with different groups. I collaborated with a team in New Penn, and we developed a wound implant for bone regeneration. So I got to do a lot of very cool work and learn how to innovate. And with the innovation also, it comes communication. So in graduate school, it's almost a default that you will be publishing your work in peer review journals. And I was able to publish and have 7 publications. And I'm very grateful also that my advisor allowed me to draft in all of the manuscripts that I was involved in, especially my first author publications. I'll have to write them. So that gave me a lot of practice on how to communicate the science that I was doing. I presented my work, in posters and, orally throughout the US. And then one thing that I learned in graduate school that for me, I think Professor Urich was really pioneering at the time was filing patent applications for the work that we were doing in the lab. And the key learning from that experience was how to identify when I made an invention, when I made something new that never existed before. Because I feel like many people do invent a lot of things, but may not be able to recognize it and say, okay, I made something new. So that was the biggest learning as we were filing patent applications, like working with the attorneys in drafting and revising the patents. That's it just comes, naturally, it's a lot easier to learn. So from my experience at Rutgers, I have 6 patent applications for all of the work that I did in my PhD. So that allowed me to really realize that I can be an innovator and I can be an inventor. Then part of my journey in graduate school is I had very good mentors during my college years, also through grad school, and I wanted to start giving back. And I cannot just, most of my mentors are there, they have their careers all set. I don't have much to offer them. So I wanted to pay it forward. And what I did during my time at Rutgers, I worked with the RISE program for 2 summers, teaching, undergraduate students the basics of, laboratory research, helping them with the research proposals and how to present and communicate the work. And also in the lab, I had my own undergraduate and high school students that came into the lab, had their research project, and I was just helping them and guiding them throughout the process. And 2 of them actually were able to publish their work in peer-reviewed journals, which is great for a undergraduate student. Then I finished my PhD. I was super fortunate to get all of my committee to sign my dissertation the same day. And I also gained a very close relationship with my advisor, Professor Urich, with whom I always keep in the loop every time that I do something new and different. She's always there, and I always talk to her, and I have a very, very good relationship with her because I learned so much from her. Then for professional life, I initially was planning to go back to pharma, but sometimes life have different plans for us. So when I was finishing my PhD, the pharmaceutical industry wasn't really in a great place. So I started looking for alternative careers. And I went to work at a company called Ingredient, which is in Bridgewater, New Jersey. Their main business is ingredients for food applications, but I work in their biomaterials group. So I was using my polymer chemistry background to modify natural polymers and make ingredients for personal care and home care products. And I did that for a little over 2 years. And then I wanted to do something different. And from graduate school, I had learned a lot about the role of polymers in cosmetics. And I have always loved cosmetics. So that's when I looked for a position at L'Oreal USA, where I'm currently working. But I started in the lipstick pre-development lab. And although I loved lipstick or makeup and cosmetics my entire life, ironically, the only product I never used was lipsticks. So I joined this lab. I really wasn't a consumer. I really didn't have the knowledge of the usage, but I started just doing innovation on the formulation side. I very quickly, started testing every single product that I could find, learning all the different types of lipsticks that there are out there. And I was working on like extreme wear and transfer resistant lipsticks. And as I'm formulating, I'm testing all these different formulas. And one day I had created this one formula that lasted all day. It was very comfortable. It didn't transfer. So at that moment, I knew that I had made something new and different. And I knew that because I had learned that back at Rutgers, how to identify that I had invented something. And I did that. So I I started talking with my manager at the time. And my manager, he didn't have any experience on patenting products. So I was like, okay, well, I took it upon myself. I'm going to learn how L'Oreal deals with patents and patent applications. So I make sure that this new formula that I made can be protected. And I did that. Again, all of the knowledge, I work, side by side with the patent team almost every single day. And then I took all that knowledge and started teaching other people in the team. So one example of one of the patents that I worked on was granted last summer. And it's a patent that covers the Maybelline Superstay Matte Ink liquid lipstick, which is a product that I invented that I'm very proud of. So I work in lipstick formulation for 4.5 years. I learn a lot. I feel like I have a bachelor's degree for the 4 years that I spent on lipsticks. And then I had an opportunity to move into face makeup. So I now working on leading all of the projects related to face makeup innovation in the US and dedicating time to invent new makeup products that last only all day, that doesn't transfer. And it's only been a year and a half, but I already filed 2 patent applications. I was tasked, I cannot give details about this because it's not out there, but I was tasked with this challenge. So I started thinking, how can I make something that doesn't exist? I had my aha moment. I did my prior art search, found not a single example. So I went ahead and filed a patent application. Now, in a year, it will be published, and then I'll be able to talk about what is it that we patented. So I continue to work in this, and I have very cool, interesting projects that I think are going to lead to a lot of cool inventions and a lot of patents as well.
Roselin, there was a question real quick.
Yeah.
Was that product called the Superstay Matte Ink Lipstick?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, someone said in the chat, they just wanted to say that they love that lipstick, and it's so cool to hear from the person who invented it.
Yeah,
So,
I'm glad they love it. It's actually very, very, very popular. It's like the #1 selling lipstick in Maybelline's history. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's
I was
amazing.
going to ask, so it's Maybelline versus L'Oreal, because I know they're
L'Oreal owns many
Maybelline.
different brands, so they do own Maybelline.
Got a lot of fans out there.
Yeah. Then in terms of, so this is what I do, to earn a living, but for me, I like to do so many other things. And one of them is outreach. And I've been doing that since I've finished my PhD. I've been back to Rutgers so many times for career panels. I do demos, I do talks, and a lot of it now is around discussing the science behind cosmetic products, especially to engage little girls into studying, any type of STEM field. So I've been dedicating a lot of time on that. And in 2019, I was selected as a AAAS IF then ambassador. And for those of you that don't know, this is an initiative of Lyda Hill Philanthropies, in which 125 women were selected to represent what a woman in STEM looks like. We are in different stages of our career. We work in pretty much every single STEM field that you can imagine. And we work to show, the next generation the possibilities that they have, especially for young girls, the things that they could potentially do and choose as a career in STEM. So I encourage everyone to, look it up. There's a lot of information. There's a huge collection of information on all of us, the ambassadors, that, is free for everyone to use. And I find it to be, very rewarding that, all this outreach is being recognized.
So
And of
Roselin,
course,
oops, I'm sorry. I was going to ask, there's another question. If you want to answer it later or now, I'm just going to say it. They're asking for you to share your experience in transitioning from the PhD into the workforce and any advice you might have. Now, I don't know if you're going to get to that.
Oh yeah, I can definitely do that. So the transition, it need, for at least this is my experience, I needed some adjustment, because in grad school, I was spending a lot of time like in the lab. I was always, doing something for school. Then when I transitioned into industry, I found myself with a lot of free time, because at least for industry, you just go in for the day, you work the day, and then you go home. And then I really wasn't used to that. In terms of the work, I think my training during grad school really prepared me to work in industry. So I knew how to prepare presentation, how to think about proposing experiments and all of that. So I think the biggest adjustment was just, understanding like the different ways of working, how to navigate the systems. But I think overall was a pretty seamless transition. It's just also understanding that you have to kind of let go of everything that you had done and start all over again, because I studied, I made so many different polymers in grad school, and I haven't made a polymer ever since. So it's always been a learning process, and it's a matter of just being open to learning. I love learning, so every time that I have a new project or get to work in something different, it's very exciting. And I think also like I know people that have always worked in the same area and develop a very strong expertise, and that's okay too. So it depends on what each individual wants, but for me, it's always been like that, just getting new challenges and experiences.
So Chris actually asked if L'Oreal has made the process available after you educated the lipstick team on how to patent. And then did it surprise them that someone on a development team was interested in patenting a formula?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
So you said, L'Oreal wasn't, your boss at least at L'Oreal wasn't aware of the patenting process and you were. Have they educated others on on the patenting process since you came about? And then did it surprise you that someone on a development team was interested in patenting a formula? Surprise them.
Yeah, so we do have trainings like all the time for patenting, so that's always there. So, but it also depends on the level of interest of each individual. So some people, and also I think like patents can be a very scary topic, so not everyone wants to go there. So it's just a matter of like, for me, I already knew, I have learned that. So for me, it was like, oh, no, there's no problem, right? My manager at the time had never worked with patents, so it was a little bit scarier. So we do have the resources, we learn them all the time, but it's really up to the person how much they want to put it in practice and how in depth they want to get involved. Any other questions in the chat?
It was a quirky question if you received the product for free.
Yes.
Like, I invented it, I better get it for free.
Everybody's going to be running to apply to L'Oreal now.
I have every single color that they have launched. So yeah, I have a little collection at home.
That's great.
Cameron said she's applying for sure.
Okay, so I'm also very close to like finishing, so we can give you more and more questions. So from the if-then work, I now dedicate a lot of time for advocating for women in STEM, and the if-then has just given me so many opportunities. Like doing this talk today, I think is in part thanks to my participation in if-then. I done like public service announcements. I was in the Marie Claire magazine last year, which I would never think about that in my life. And now have partnership with different, nonprofit organizations and science museums to again talk about the science behind cosmetics. And one activity that is really close to my heart is that this year I'm partnering with Ciencia Puerto Rico or Science Puerto Rico in a program called Seeds of Success. So I'm co-organizing this program, which shows 120 Puerto Rican girls to participate, in which we're giving them mentorship, we're giving them resources for them to do a STEM project and outreach to their communities, so they can teach their communities about the STEM topic that they choose. And we also giving them a lot of resources. We're giving them exposure to Latina women in STEM. So we have a series of talks. We did half of them last year. Now we're doing half this year, and just really exposing the girls to all these, the possibilities of working in STEM. Then now in closing, I just wanted to kind of circle back to the definition. So against the odds, which is it happens or succeeds, although it seems impossible or very unlikely. So I think that it could have been very unlikely for that little girl to become, who I am today, but nothing in life is impossible. And I feel like it doesn't matter what you aim for, there's always a chance to do it. And that's really what my message is, because I feel like my life has been that. And I always like to close my presentations with giving my contact information. I love connecting with people. I'm very active on LinkedIn and Instagram, and people can email me. Also, just again about the if then. This orange image is actually a life-size 3D printed statue of myself, and there's one of each of the ambassadors. So sometime in the future, once the pandemic is resolved and we all get our vaccines, there's going to be a huge exhibition. So I hope that you guys can participate of that. So thank you so much for your time and some of the questions. I'll be happy to take more questions now. And I hope that you actually enjoyed what I had to share with you.
So it looks like Chris has her hand raised. So if you want to raise your hands, we can call on you and you can actually ask Roselin the question yourself, and you can show your face if you'd like to.
So I unmuted myself there. I'm sorry, that was clapping.
Oh, okay. Okay, well then I'll ask a question while everybody's thinking of questions. Mark had collected some questions that people put on their registration form in Eventbrite. So I'll read you one of those, Roselin. How can we encourage more young women to studying STEM subjects? What do you think is one way we could do that?
I think really through exposure and teaching them and mentoring them, and really for me, like, it's about showing them what they could do, because sometimes if you don't know, then you don't go there. So I think to encourage them is you just really show them, and I feel like for them to know, and also that it is okay to not like, you don't have to like every single STEM field, but really exposure and showing them with real life examples, I think, what they could do.
Great.
That's great. Roselin, I do have a question. Everything looks so great. Your trajectory looks like almost out of a storybook, right? It's like so perfect, but I'm sure there were some challenging moments where you felt like, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, or something like that. And that, this imposter syndrome that we keep hearing about. So there was one question about that. How do you kind of advise young minority women, especially who are experiencing this imposter syndrome, how to kind of overcome that? And maybe you could talk a little bit about your experience. If there were some naysayers or people who didn't want you to succeed, how did you kind of overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, and I think like at some point I need to change my presentation to make it a little bit more realistic. It's not really a fairy tale, and and I think like in general we all talk about our successes, and it's not like it was like I was just like bouncing around with flowers. It wasn't like that. There's always challenges. Actually, was in one of our Seed of Success presentations, one of the panelists showed this graph about the success in reality, and in real in like what we think it is, like it's a straight line, you're just going, but then there's so many twists and turns. And for me, I'm not the exception. There's always been things that have been tough, and I do suffer of imposter syndrome many times, but I need to I try to talk myself out of it by kind of looking back at all the things that I have achieved and thinking of all the other things that I could achieve. Yeah, I have encountered like so many, experiences, or people that don't, believe that I should be like in the same room, for example, or that have made comments that are out of line and things like that. It's tough because when I was younger, I didn't have the confidence to maybe like stop some of those situations. And being an introvert and being shy is difficult to confront different situations. So I just have gained that confidence over time, and now I'm a lot more vocal, and not let like tough situations stop me. Like I said before, I work very hard and I don't give up. And I think that's the key. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. For example, I was talking to one of my friends, like, yeah, if you're applying for a job and you don't have all of the requirements, still apply for it, right? You never know. So it's all about like pushing yourself in, I feel like I thrive when I'm out of my comfort zone. So it's all about, just keep going. Like, don't let any uncomfortable situation stop you.
I really like that you said that, Roselin, about the job, because I attended a presentation once by one of the first women bureau chiefs at the Wall Street Journal. And she did some research on that and found that, women are much less likely to apply for jobs unless they have like 90% of every requirement listed, where men will apply for things freely if they have 40 or 50% of their requirements. And that statistic was so empowering to me and made me realize that, yeah, we can learn stuff on the job just like anyone else. And, you don't get anything if you don't put your hat in the ring, right?
Yeah. Like I said, when I joined L'Oreal, I joined the lipstick lab and I didn't even wear lipstick. So you don't have to be 100% prepared. But when I did my interview, they asked me like, how would you do, how would you make a extreme wear lipstick? So I'm like, I know how to make polymers. I know how, I learn about films, you make analogies with like painting a wall, right? It's very, it's the same concept. So as long as you have, that the basic knowledge, you can build it wherever you want.
Great.
Roselin, so I have a question. You had said that you were directed towards medicine as a kid who was good in STEM and math. And I think for LSAMP and B2B, a lot of our students are directed that way by their families. And what we've encountered is that many of them have difficulty when they want to change that course and go into some other STEM field because the parents are then invested in the child going into healthcare. Did you face that with your parents when you decided to go to graduate school in chemistry?
I did not. Fortunately, that's why my parents were never forcing any of me or my siblings to go in a specific direction. That was more like from my school advisors, like just go to medicine. I was like, okay, well, I'll go to that. But the whole thing with blood. My parents were actually the only thing that was not negotiable was not going to college. We had to go. Although my parents didn't, really had the means to provide us with, college, we had to figure out ourselves, but we had to go. It doesn't matter what we wanted to study. And initially, I was just thinking about medicine, but then once I, really found my passion in, research, then my parents have always been very respectful and also supportive of that. Because, after that, Merck experience where they didn't want to let me go, they saw like everything that I gained. So they really saw the value and continue to support me on that.
That's great.
I have another question. As you were going on and you're really greatly successful. And so I'm wondering, as you were along your journey, did you have, in those low days and those low times, did you have friends to fall back on who were also succeeding in different, did you have other peers that you were kind of like competing with and moving forward with, or were you kind of just on your own and it's just like you against the world, I guess? You know what I mean?
No, yeah. So I think that, and I learned with time, it's like you don't have to be alone. And I have a lot of friends. Like in my lab, we were so many different students, so we worked together. And I think like leveraging people that like I have my friends, of course, like for my scientific career, my family, I cannot just go to them because they don't know anything about that. But I have a lot of friends from college and we always stay in touch. We'll talk, when things are tough, it's always good sometimes just to have a conversation. And then with the people in the research lab, it was great because they were super helpful. When I started grad school, my English wasn't perfect. I never studied English when I was growing up. And they helped me a lot in terms of like when I was writing my manuscripts, like sitting, like revising them, making all these comments and then sitting down with me so I could actually learn and next time not make the same mistakes. So I'm not friends with every single person. I have a small circle of friends that we've been together for many, many years. And it's also good to have people that you trust that are going to similar situations, so you can share those experiences. So I've been fortunate that a lot of my friends and close friends that I made throughout the years have gone to grad school. And I think also success, the definition is very individual. So what is successful for me may not be for another person. So it's all about supporting each other and making sure that not anyone is alone.
So do you have any, we have another question in the chat. Do you have any other advice for fellow introverts?
So I think don't let the kind of anxiety and shyness stop you. And I think also not make a direct correlation that because you're an introvert, you cannot be a leader. There's always a way. Sometimes, a lot of people think, if you're an introvert, you're automatically not a leader. You cannot present, you cannot do any of that. Find the way to kind of push yourself, but not too much that then, it's make you too uncomfortable. At least for me, like I work, I'm leading projects, so I'm, on the forefront, but then I need my time to kind of rebuild my energy. So then I spend some time, quiet, maybe reading something, or, just to kind of, have my own time, because I need that. So don't let any, like being an introvert stop you from doing things that are by definition for extroverted people, and then find ways to kind of regain that energy that at least I feel like I lose when I'm doing all these, other stuff.
Great. So we have a tip in the chat about Toastmasters as a program for people that can learn how to speak. And that Rutgers actually has a Toastmasters chapter.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Yeah.
Everybody's inspired. I can say I've got a lot of feedback in the chat. You're so inspiring. Your story's great. Thank you for sharing. So I know you can't see them all, but there's a lot there. The audience is really excited about, the tips you've given and how inspiring you are and how far you've come from the little girl in Puerto Rico, right? Who didn't think didn't know what was beyond, right, undergraduate school.
Yeah. So I'm happy. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that, I'm inspiring everyone to, pursuing your dreams and knowing that, everything is possible. So, thanks a lot. I really had a great time. I just feel excited to be kind of back in making connections back with Rutgers.
Yeah, we really thank you so much for doing this, and you're a model to all of us, especially those who are from the LSAMP program and the B2B program. As like, if you keep pushing forward, you could be more like Roselin, but also you'll be more like yourself. But you'll be a success in whatever metric you choose. And so just put your mind to it, overcome the naysayers and just do what you want to do, and don't let anything take you down. Just keep trying. I like what you said also. Rejection hurts. It just shows that you've experienced it, right? Because like I said, it seems like a perfect story, but you did get rejected, and but that's what made you stronger. It's what made you better, and I think that's the message that all the participants on the call could learn from. Just keep pushing and don't give up. So
don't be afraid of scary situations, right? That first trip to Texas, your first airplane ride had to be super, super scary, but you did it anyway, right? You took the leap of faith, and you realized what a great experience it was.
Yeah. I think even if it's something unknown, it's worth trying it, because at least if I was scared, like traveling by myself, back then, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have learned what is it to be in the lab. So to me, scary is good.
That's great. Okay, so thank you again, Roselin. I'm going to just share my screen. We just have one final thing to wrap up.
Hey, can I just quickly say,
sure,
I put a couple times in the chat box a link to a survey. So GSLSAMP and NNJ B2B have external evaluators that we have to report to, and this survey is just part of that. So if the students on the call wouldn't mind copying the link and just answering a few questions after this, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, Thanks, Chris. So we do just want to announce the next upcoming virtual event by the Rutgers I-Corps program is next Friday, January 22nd from 11 to 12. We are going to be doing an info session about the I-Corps program, like a full info session. We'll have about a half-hour discussion about I-Corps, and then we'll answer any questions for teams who want to apply or for any individuals who want to apply for the fellowship. So oh, I guess I'll put that in the chat. Yeah, Lori, can you put that in chat if you can?
What am I putting in
The Eventbrite. It's okay, I'll do it.
I was
I'll
going to
keep it
say,
in.
I don't have it up in front of me. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's
I
okay.
have the slides. I have today's slides, but it doesn't have that in there. Oh, yeah, it does. I'm sorry. I do have it, Mark. I'm sorry. I do have it. I can do it. Hold
It's okay.
on. I'm going to put the Eventbrite link in. Here it is.
I got it. So great. So if you want to ask any more questions of Roselin, that's great. But any other questions? I think there was one question about networking and collaborating, how it impacted your success in STEM. Roselin, the question.
So I think that's super critical, super important. And one little story that I have when I was in Merck is that my supervisor it was like a Friday. It's like, everyone pack up, we're going to a barbecue. And I was like, I didn't come here to do barbecues. I came here to do, research. And he's like, you know what, we're going to this barbecue where you're going to be able to meet, very, important people. And, it's important to do your work, but also like people get other people's jobs. The chemicals, your cells, whatever you're doing in the lab, yeah, in part gets, will be give you credentials to get a job, but people get other people's jobs. So that always stuck with me, is like building those connections and meaningful connections and a strong network. And because in the end, you never know where you're gonna go. We all have a plan, but life can take us so many different places. So keeping like really connections and networking is super important. And like I said, as an introvert, I'm not the type of person that comes into a big room and starts shaking hands. So I need to, mentally prepare for that and put a little bit more effort. But I do it because it's super important. And I think now it's a lot easier because, the LinkedIn, you can do a lot of, kind of virtual networking and keep in touch with people, because I think that's also part of it to build that strong network, is not just meeting people, hi, hello, is just to continuing those relationships. So once you make those connections and identify people that can, help you grow, continue to kind of build those relationships.
It's a really, really great point. Thanks for sharing that. That's so important. It's building that relationship. And what was great to see is that you still keep in touch with all your former mentors. So she practices what she preaches, that it's really important to stay in touch with these people who have had such a big impact on her life and her career. Sorry.
Yeah, that's great. So, okay. Well, thank you so much, Roselin, for joining us today. And Chris and Tom, thank you so much for sharing this event with your LSAMP and B2B students. And we encourage you to, just keep pushing forward and succeeding in STEM, just like Roselin. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Roselin.
Thanks, Roselin.